Welcome into episode 346 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. Bridget and Scott, we are at 2 practices, an intra-squad scrimmage, and 1 preseason game into Boston Bruins training camp. So let's just get right into our opening shifts. The Bruins obviously lost that first preseason game to the Rangers 3-2 at TD Garden Sunday night at 5 p.m. start time. So Bridget's opening shifts through training camp so far.
Yeah, so I think that first of all, like obviously the score doesn't matter in a preseason game, but there's certainly things that you noticed in certain guys' performances that led itself to be that way. And I'll start with pretty much the 2 biggest names that people wanted to watch in terms of prospects, guys that had hopes or have hopes to make Boston this season, and that's Georgi Merkulov and Fabian Lysell. And I think that you guys will both agree, and I think most fans that watched the game were probably pretty underwhelmed with the first game that they both played. They were both the only 2 guys on the team that didn't have a shot on goal, and that's really their main thing is are they going to be able to bring offense? And especially for Fabian Lysell, he's going to have to create more opportunities for himself. And so we'll obviously get to your opinions on that too, but these are guys that have to have big camps in order to steal a job from, say, a Matt Poitras, who we'll get into, or steal a job from some of the other guys that we maybe had penciled in as extra forwards that could jump up the lineup, because there are a few guys that have had strong camps, and we'll get into those as well.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely need to see those 2. Definitely need to get it going, and we will get into that. My opening shift is about 2 other players who didn't have the best game Sunday, and that is the 2 goalies, Brandon Bussi and Michael DiPietro. You see 3 goals against, and you think, oh, how bad could the goaltending be? That they let in a soft one. Bussi gave up 2 goals. First one, I think he was pretty screened on. He even said that after the game. He didn't get a good look at it. He said he would have to look at the video to see if he could have, fought through that better, gotten to a better angle. But he even admitted that he wishes he had the second one back. He got beat from the right dot. A good shot, but it wasn't a total snipe. Like, it wasn't like way up in the corner, but beat him over the glove. And then DiPietro only gave up 1 goal, but it was a bad one. It was a low angle shot, almost an impossible angle that he just wasn't up against the post for. So, if you're playing the leverage game, or, how do the Bruins look without Jeremy Swayman around in net? Shaky start for Bussi and DiPietro. Obviously, we did not see Jonas Korpisalo in this game. We did see him play in the black and gold scrimmage on Saturday down in Providence, and I thought he made a few good saves in that game. Also gave up some pretty juicy rebounds. So all around,
I was not impressed with goaltending in the scrimmage either.
No, and it, it is a scrimmage, but guys are playing that like a competitive game, and there's some weird situations where the second period was all special teams, so that's harder to judge a goalie. And the third period, the last 5 minutes, were extra attacker, and then it was 3-on-3. Like, some of it gets a little wonky. Like, the final score is 7-2, but it was actually only 3-1 before they went to 3-on-3.
And then 3-on-3, there was a goal every 30 seconds.
Yeah, that kind of runs the score up a bit. But regardless, to bring it all back, doesn't mean the Bruins are totally screwed if Jeremy Swayman's not here by opening night. But if you're looking for, trying to build some confidence and gain some confidence in some of these other guys, not there yet.
So, as I mentioned off the top, the Bruins' first preseason game was Sunday night at 5 o'clock. And I do want to mention, because we're going to talk about Lysell and Merkulove to Bridget's opening shift. But I thought that for the most part, a lot of the players that dressed for the Bruins Sunday night definitely showed themselves well for the most part. I think that it may not have been a full 60 for all the prospects as individuals, but I think a lot of the prospects that played showed glimpses of of their strengths and show them didn't hurt their cases. I mean, most of them, and by most, I mean just about all of them, maybe all of them will be in Providence or at the most, right? But you liked what you saw out of certain players. That Riley Duran started strong, played pretty well throughout the game. Is it Kopka? Cole Kopka? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Kepke.
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought he played strong. Like he was out there. Mark Kaslick, who we all know is going to be on the Bruins roster, kind of showed what he's going to bring to the Bruins. Up and down the lineup, I thought a lot of the forwards played well, but Trevor Kuntar, I believe, is the one forward that leaves that game with the Bruins brass being like, yeah, he showed his game in a one game microcosm. Like it wasn't just the goal he scored, which was a very garbage type goal.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the beautiful hit he had on a forecheck, open ice hit. It was everything else that I noticed about his game that stood out to me, which was just smart plays along the wall, protecting the puck, getting pucks in deep when he has to, just keeping the game simple. He has a very mature game. And what does that mean for him in Boston? I think it means he's going to go down to Providence, most likely. But I think that when the Bruins need somebody from Providence, I think he's going to be probably one of the first names, if not the first forward that they might call up this year. And depending on what they're looking for. And I think that speaks volumes to the player. And I think that he should be proud of himself for how he showed up. And I think a lot of fans and media have been mentioning Kuntar's name a lot for these exact reasons. And so good for him on showing himself pretty well.
Yeah, we talked to him after the game too. And I asked him, how comfortable he felt in about like the pace of the game. And he said that because he's got a full AHL season under his belt now, and he played preseason last year with the Bruins with NHL guys, he felt like he was more comfortable and confident and playing at the right pace. And he definitely had a confidence to him after the game because he played so well. So it makes a lot of sense that he did. But I mean, this is a kid that played 3 years at BC, and that's exactly how he played there. He was always physical. He was always being a little bit of a pest, but normally in a good way, in the right way. And he played to his strengths, and that's not always easy in preseason because everybody's trying to show themselves. And sometimes you put a little bit too much pressure on yourself. And I feel like maybe pressure did get to some of the other guys, but for sure, Trevor Kuntar did not seem like one of them.
Yeah. Like his game plan, every time he's on the ice, it's just a 3-step plan: hit someone, go to the front of the net, shoot. Like that's his game. Like, I think there's other parts of his game that need to be ironed out, which is why he probably starts a young Providence, but he's certainly, making a case for himself. And I think he's going to hang around a while. Remember, he hung around into October last year in training camp, and you're like, that's interesting. He's made it through like 2 or 3 rounds of cuts, and that was before he had ever played a professional game.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be around a while this year, and wouldn't be totally shocked if he's there at the end. Last year in Providence, he had the 3rd most shots on the team. Now, where he needs to improve is he only scored 10 goals out of that. So and that was kind of an issue at BC at times too, was he gets a lot of looks, he takes a lot of shots, not a lot of them go in. So good for him to score one Sunday night though. But yeah, he definitely is one of the guys who comes out of that first preseason game and really these first 4 days of camp looking the best.
Yeah, and it was those 2 lines. So that coach said, set the pace and set the tone and kind of dragged the other 2 lines in. It was the Beecher, Kaslick, Duran line and the Kuntar, Nelson, Patrick Brown line that were the ones that were bringing the energy. And coach acknowledged it and said that the other 2 lines, which had one had Merkulov and one had Lysell, were kind of picking up on the energy of those 2 other lines. I don't know if you guys want to talk about, like, go back to my opening shift and talk about Merkulov and Lysell right now, because I just feel like that's the biggest story. I mean, some people, and the 3 of us were all at training camp the first 2 days of practice, and we had a conversation in between sessions about, like, how many chances is Fabian Lysell going to get? It kind of feels like he is the guy they want to kind of grab the bull by the horns and win the job. And so far, it hasn't really. You haven't seen it yet.
No, and it's easy for people to watch the game today on TV and see some of the turnovers and the fact that he's more or less just invisible out there, whether it's 5-on-5 or special teams, and draw a conclusion from that. But I will also say, no, I didn't have the luxury of being in Providence for the inter-squad scrimmage. But as you mentioned, Bridget, I was at the first two practices, as were you guys. And look, for somebody who has been preparing all summer and his entire professional career to get this opportunity in Boston, you would expect him to be a man on a mission, nobody get in my way, head on fire. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this team and make an impression. And his body language, which unless you were somebody at Warrior Arena, whether it was because it's open to the public for a training camp and saw it in person, I don't love the body language I see out of him in those practices. He kind of like is by himself. He's not really talking much with teammates. He's standing straight up. He looks honestly like he doesn't really want to be there. And outside of a couple of flashes and some rush drills where, I mean, who are we kidding? It's just a 3-on-2 drill in practice. It's not that telling. Battle drills, he wasn't really doing much of anything either. So I just see a player who just, he's just not getting it. And he has all the speed in the world when he gets going, but it's early in camp. But so far, I don't see a player who's ready for the NHL, let alone on a line with Brad Marchand. And I know that maybe if you play with Coyle in preseason games, he might look a little bit better, but it doesn't matter because somebody mentioned to me on Twitter, like he's playing with a bunch of scrubs, which, that's disrespectful to the players he's playing with. Those are good, hard hockey players.
And by the way, one of those guys scored. So
yeah, no, they're not scrubs. And in fact, they're doing the little things right that Lysell's not. So I don't care who you're playing with or not playing with. The puck management, everything, it's not there right now.
And
yeah, I mean, he was on a line with Cole Koepke and John Farinacci. He was the third best player on that line Sunday. Like,
yeah,
Koepke scored and had other chances and was around the puck quite a bit. Farinacci was very good on faceoffs. I think he finished 9 of 12. Or 10 of 15. 9 of 12 was earlier in the third period. He finished 10 of 15. Landed a team high 5 hits. And I thought helped break some plays up defensively. And you see good stuff from Lysell in flashes. Like, I don't want to make this out to be like it's been some sort of disaster. He both in camp and in Sunday's game, he had a couple nice passes on breakouts, hitting the weak side defenseman, showing some poise, against the defenseman coming down on him. He has had some good rushes. He had one in the black and gold game in Providence where he picked up the puck in the D zone, went end to end basically with speed, put a good hard shot on net that produced a juicy rebound from Mark McLaughlin, who got robbed. I think that was Mayer who was in net. Really made a great save to rob McLaughlin. That would have been an assist for Lysell. But outside of those flashes, though, there's too many quiet shifts. And that's the problem, is other guys aren't having quiet shifts or aren't having that many of them. And he is. And he also had, he had 2 turnovers on a shift that led up to a Rangers goal. Now that was the DiPietro one that should have been saved. So that shift should not have ended with a goal against, but nonetheless, it was a rough shift for him. He had a turnover on an entry on the power play, had a pass picked off. At the end, he finishes with, he has a good effort to take away an empty net goal. He broke up an empty netter. So again, props where they're due, but there's just not enough going on from him right now.
I would say the most memorable moment from the black and gold game that involved Fabian Lysell was him getting wrecked by Nikita Zadorov at the end of one of his shifts. Like, this was a hit that Lysell was just going to do a dump and change. Like, he was at the end of his shift. Zadorov came all the way off the bench across to the other side of the ice and finished this check on him. And I was a little bit shocked because it seemed unnecessary, but I mean, he's going to need to play against that in the NHL anyway. So, like, you got to get used to it, I guess. But I think he was caught off guard. I certainly was caught off guard. When you see somebody as big, the biggest or second biggest NHLer in the league coming at you, and it was a big hit, and it's on your own teammate. So there was a little bit of a wake up call from him in the black and gold game.
And credit to him for bouncing right up from that. Like, he didn't stay down. He got off the ice, but yeah, he was not fully braced for it.
No, I don't think anybody was sure that Zadorov was going to fully lay into him like that, but including myself. But what I want to say about, preseason games, you never know how many you're going to get, and every single opportunity matters. And it's not just about having a good preseason game or, a good day at training camp and in a practice or the black and gold game or whatever. You're looking for consistency too. And so far, he's been consistently underperforming, right? You want to be consistently overperforming or consistently standing out. And I feel like at this point, the trend is not that for him. And there are some guys who I do feel like have been consistently doing what they need to do, like Trevor Kuntar, and I think Riley Tufte I would put in that category too. Like just playing hard hockey. But you don't want to squander the games that you're in because you may only get 3, or you may only get 2. Like you don't have, there's no guarantee on how many preseason games you get to play. So this is one chance that it has been missed for some of these guys. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, and Scott, you mentioned how he's had a couple of flashes, a couple of nice passes and this and that. That's great. I mean, but like all of these guys have a couple of good passes. They're all national hockey. They're all professional hockey players, whether it's their NHL, AHL, or fringe. They're all capable of making those plays in practice, and they do. And no disrespect to the Providence scrimmage. I mean, it was fun for the fans, but I'm not putting – I put more stock in the 2 practices prior than I do that day just because it was kind of like – I mean, you know what? Let me take that back because I wasn't there. So I don't want to –
no,
and it wasn't streamed either. So I just had to rely on some tweets and some video footage from people that were there. But
yeah, I actually think it was pretty valuable. Like, I think that I do think they got a lot out of it. And you got a lot of 5-on-5 work, special teams work, special situations, like I said, like 6-on-5, like, and they played hard. Like Bridget mentioned the big hit by Zadorov, but it was Sunday's game was more physical, obviously going against a different team, but Saturday was pretty physical too. Like guys were not taking it easy or anything.
No, they definitely weren't. And I did form some some opinions based off the black and gold games. I came to a few conclusions about people, or it helped me form my opinions about people and whether or not they're making the team. And not to like jump off Lysell and Merkulove completely, but I did want to talk about.
We haven't even really gone to Merkulove.
Guys, if before
this ties in. This ties in.
Okay.
So I wanted to talk about how Matt Poitras has played and is affecting, like he's one of these positions that Merkulove and Lysell are going for. Merkulove in particular, if he's looking for that third line center role, you feel like he has to beat out Matt Poitras. And Poitras doesn't look like he's going to get beat out. So far, I think he looks good. I think he got stronger. He's up to 189 pounds now, I think, right, Scott? Like he's put on, I don't know, was it 11 or so pounds since the previous training camp? And
yeah, it's 13 pounds since last year at the same time.
And he scores a pretty nice goal in the scrimmage. He didn't play in the preseason game 1, so we haven't seen him in game time action yet. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Matt Poitras makes the team over both of those guys right now. And
pretty easily.
That's one less spot for them to take.
Yeah, I mean, just to finish on the Lysell stuff quickly, because Poitras made the team last year, and I think he has to kind of prove himself a bit, but I think he already starts camp with a leg up on those guys. Because what Poitras does, the little things that Lysell hasn't done. And I don't look at Merkulov and Lysell as equals right now, because I think while their fate might be the same at the end of training camp, which is they both going to Providence, I think it's for totally different reasons. I think, like, when I watch Lysell, whether it's in practice or against the Rangers, to me, he's not really playing hockey. He's out for a skate. He's not protecting the puck. He's not really engaging much in physical battles. He's not playing down low at all with any sort of conviction. And Merkulov, I feel like, is doing those things. I just think size is going to be a problem for him. And I think that the game happens a little bit quick for him at the NHL level. So with Lysell, to me, it's I don't need to see him go end to end in a preseason game to say, oh, he's an NHL player. I want to see him do all the little things. Matt Poitras does the little things. I think Merkulov does the little things. I just think the game happens too quick for him. I think he's a little bit smaller. So for me right now with Lysell, like, I don't think it's registering with him what he has to do to be a successful hockey player at the biggest level. I think Merkulov gets it. I just don't think he might be capable of doing it. And Poitras does get it, and he is capable. And that's why Poitras is going to find himself in Boston more so than others.
Yeah, one kind of like developing opinion I have on Merkulov, and I will say, like, he doesn't necessarily have to beat out Poitras, because I think Poitras is going to start on the wing. I think that's where they want him for now, to kind of lessen the demands of the two-way game. So there could be room for Merkulov and Poitras. But either way, like, Poitras, gonna block one of them, or at least be, an extra body at that position. But with Merkulov, because I was watching him pretty closely Sunday, and I think he did some good things in the defensive zone, right? Like, that's always been the number one thing for him, is, like, if he's going to be a center in the NHL, he has to improve his defense. And watching him Sunday, I actually thought he was, like, mostly in pretty good positions defensively and handling his responsibilities. But then he assisted on the first goal, didn't do a ton, just had to move the puck back to the point. But, like, other than that, he just wasn't really involved all that much offensively. And I wonder if he's going to be, at least for right now, one of those centers who it's like he can do one or the other, but he just can't quite play the 200-foot game that the Bruins demand that their centers in the NHL play. Like, I think if you put him in offensive situations in the NHL, I think he's creative enough that he can make some things happen. I think if he's really locked in defensively, he can handle that. But I wonder if it, like, takes away from his offense too much. And someone that it kind of makes me think of is Jesper Boquist last year, who also kind of seemed like a player who could do, like, one or the other. Like, when they found that mix of, okay, Boquist is going to play through the middle in transition and in the offensive zone, but Beecher is going to take the faceoffs and, like, do more of the defensive work, that seemed to work. And I almost wonder if, like, Merkulov is almost, if he's going to be in the NHL, almost needs something like that. And maybe that's, if he is on a line with Trent Frederick, maybe that's it. Maybe Trent Frederick handles more defensive zone responsibilities, and Merkulov doesn't have to do as much down low in the D zone. But I also, but maybe that's not what the Bruins are looking like, right? Like, maybe they just want someone who can do it all. And if he's going to be a regular for them, he's going to have to be able to do both. And I don't know if he's there just yet.
My thoughts on him as well, and the usage that Montgomery has used him in so far, he's always been, like, during training camp, during the Black and Gold game, and during the first preseason game, he's been on the same line the entire time. It's him centering Riley Tufte and Vinny Lettieri. And whereas Fabian Lysell is getting time with Charlie Coyle, who's obviously in your top 6, and that's an NHLer, and you're giving him chances potentially with a guy that could be his line mate if he takes that job that Jake DeBrusk vacated when he left. And then you see Poitras, and Poitra's playing because Elias Lindholm's out with David Pastrnak and Pavel Zacha. And so you see, to me, it's like those two guys, they're in positions where Montgomery is saying, like, here, I want to see what you can do with these jobs. Like, you're on the inside right now. We're putting you on the inside, and we want to see how you can handle being on the inside. And I do want to see Lysell, because he hasn't been playing with Koepke and Farinacci, who he played with in game 1. He's been playing with Tyler Johnson and Charlie Coyle. How does it look next to those guys? Is it better? Is he more locked in? Does Charlie Coyle help him because he's a good communicator and can kind of talk to him in between shifts and on the ice and get him where he needs to go? I do want to see that. So I don't think, like, obviously it's the first preseason game. We're not trying to overreact to it. But having no shots in the game is, it's a tough look for both of those guys.
I mean, I definitely think Lysell would look better if he was playing alongside Coyle and some other proven NHL talent. I mean, who wouldn't, right? But I just feel like, and yes, it's one preseason game and 2 practices in the scrimmage. And I'm curious to see what you guys thought of him in those practices. But you can put him next to Connor McDavid next preseason game. There's some habits or lack thereof that I'm not seeing from Lysell. Like, whether it's, like I said, puck protection, assertiveness on the forecheck, just that battle level. He's not lacking speed. We all know that. When he gets going, his straightaway speed is excellent. And his hands and his shot, that's all there. It's not coming to fruition right now in training camp because I don't think he has a ton of confidence. But I don't know. I just think that there's a couple of weeks before the regular season, and there's going to have to be some dramatic changes to some of the habits that I've seen. And like, how did you guys think he looked in those practices at Warrior? Not somebody who looked like they were fighting for their career, did it?
I would say my overarching one word for both of those practices, black and gold, and the game, is just quiet.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
I was gonna go underwhelming, but yeah, I mean, same idea. It's it's kind of been the same story like all 4 days that I've watched them so far, which is occasional flashes, but not enough. Just too quiet, too invisible for some drills, shifts, whatever it might be. Yeah, you definitely have to pick it up. And look, there is time. There's 6 more preseason games. There's more than 2 weeks until the regular season starts. So, like, he's going to have time. He's going to stick around. He's going to keep playing in preseason games. I know, Bridget, you're right. Like, it is possible you only get 2 or 3 preseason games, but I think they're going to give him a lot of chances. Remember, last year he was like a fairly early cut. It was like halfway through training camp that he got sent down. I don't think that's going to happen this year, even if he is still kind of struggling. Like, I think they really want to give him opportunities, because then at the end, like, they can definitively say one way or another, like, either, all right, hey, you got off to a slow start, but you know what? You earned it. Let's not forget, like, his offseason was once again interrupted. Not trying to make excuses for him, but he was off the ice for 3 months after a season-ending injury. So, maybe it takes him an extra week to get going. Like, he's going to get that chance. But if it's more of this, then they're going to be able to pretty definitively say, we gave you every opportunity to win second or third line right wing, and you didn't do it. So now you have to go down to Providence and try to work your way up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't put it past them to get called up to Boston this year, whether it's through injury or performance down in Providence. But I just think that right now it's a sprint to the regular season, and I think there's a lot of players that are NHL proven and ready that are ahead of him, that he needed to have a lights out camp from start to finish, in my opinion, to really surpass the likes of Poitras on. If here are some names that are believed to be in the running for that second line right wing spot. You have Poitras, Frederic, you have Geeky, Brazeau could be an internal candidate, Max Jones, Tyler Johnson on a PTO who looked really experienced and professional, knows what he's doing in those practices. You're not gonna surpass those guys by having a Jekyll and Hyde preseason. And by the way, so far it's been one way. Hasn't even been Jekyll and Hyde. So yes, it's early. He has time, but you're not gonna go from like some okay preseason games to surpassing Frederic and Geeky and Poitras on the depth chart. We're not talking about him just making an NHL roster. We're talking about him playing alongside Brad Marchand and Charlie Coyle on a second line. That's not going to happen from an okay training camp. So look, if you're detecting any disappointment from me, I am disappointed a little bit because he has so much talent and we've been waiting for 2 or 3 years now. And look, I've been right there with everybody saying he's had tough luck with injuries. He's been Providence's second leading scorer for the last couple of years behind Merkulov. I want him to have a great camp, but he has to want it more than anybody. And to me, you don't need to score preseason goals to impress people. You just have to do the little things. And right now, all of his peers, they're doing the little things. And all I'm asking is to see that maturation. And I haven't seen the maturation with the details yet. And I don't know if playing with Charlie Coyle in the next preseason game gives him that all of a sudden.
Like, it certainly gives him a better chance because Charlie's making smart plays with the puck and whatnot. But what you just said a minute ago, Brian, was, he'll be playing with Marchand and Coyle if he's on that second line. Well, I think that missing Marchand right now is kind of, it kind of takes away from maybe what Fabian Lysell can take out of training camp, because Scott, you said this to me the other day. Brad Marchand is the kind of guy that if he sees you with bad habits or take a shift off or whatever, he's not happy with your game, he will let you know. Charlie Coyle will let you know in a nice way and talk you through it and correct you in a very polite way. But Brad Marchand is going to push his teammates, especially his line mates, and I feel like hopefully Marchand gets back soon enough that we get to see those three be a line in a preseason game.
Yeah. I mean, sure, he probably looks better if he's with Coyle and Marchand, and you probably do want to give that a look at some point. But Fabian Lysell's in a spot where he has to perform no matter who he's with.
Right.
You can't use line mates as an excuse. Again, John Farinacci and Cole Koepke played well Sunday.
My point was
he was on a line with two guys who had a good game. So
no, my point wasn't that he's gonna look like that. He's gonna look better with them. It was that playing with Brad Marchand, you don't have any excuses, and you learn about being a professional by playing with Brad Marchand because he'll push you.
Guys, I'll be honest. What I'm seeing from him or not, he doesn't look like somebody who's helping any line he's on right now. He has no puck possession. He has no idea. Look. Who are any of us to criticize a professional athlete's hockey game? But what I can say is, compared to his peers, he doesn't appear to get it. And I don't know how else to say it. He's not holding on to pucks. He's not making smart decisions. He's not making the players around him better. So I don't care if he's playing with John Farinacci or Brad Marchand. He's not making net positive plays. And I wish I could sit here and say that he has been so far. I saw it with my own eyes, and I've seen it in game one. There's time left, but he has to improve. Otherwise, I'm not going to sit here and say better players, he'll play better. He has to rely on himself in this camp.
Right. And I don't want to go too far on the negative either, because he has been a difference maker in Providence. He's been a very good player in Providence. By all accounts, he, did get better in terms of all around game, team game, all that stuff that Ryan Mougenel called him out for in December. And as the year went on, he did take that to heart and worked on it. In Providence, he has made his teammates and line mates better. So that's, he was better in Providence last year than John Farinacci or Trevor Kuntar. So I don't want to go too far, but to your point, Brian, right now it's a sprint to the regular season. So you have 3 weeks to make your case right now that you're the best guy
Right.
for the job. And again, right now we're not even through 1 week, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and the tendency for somebody like him, the less and less time you have left to prove yourself, like you might end up trying to do too much. Like you might try to take on 2 guys and go around them and show off your skill set when and it fail and it look bad, So like sometimes you get stuck in this position where it's like I need to show my own ability, so I do something a little bit selfish, or I take a puck in and take guys on when maybe there was a pass that I should have made instead, and that's just some of the stuff that can creep in when you really feel the pressure.
Well, and there's no doubt there's pressure. He's gonna have to battle through that. But Scott, to your point about him making his teammates better in Providence, my point tonight is not to discredit or take that away from him. And I'm certainly not saying that because Farinacci is holding on to the puck down low against the Rangers on Sunday that he has a better ceiling or a future than Lysell. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is like he has been one of Providence's best players the last 2 years. So why are we not seeing any consistency in that regard in a preseason game where both lineups are 95% minor leaguers? Like he's not playing against the Rangers lineup. There's Philip Hedl and Capo Caco, and they're out for a skate. Everybody else out there is the Hartford Wolfpack and the Providence Bruins. So why is he not looking like one of the best players on the ice tonight? And when you have a small sample size to impress Don Sweeney and the Bruins brass, I'm sorry, like he should be making his teammates around him better tonight. And the reason that I'm harping on is because he doesn't have the luxury of time. None of these guys do. So, let's see how it plays out. But we can only talk about right now what we've seen. None of us here on this podcast were impressed with him in practice. Nobody saw the black and gold scrimmage except for people at the Duncan Center because the Bruins didn't stream it. So we can't really talk much about that. And then everybody who watched him against the Rangers saw the fact that he had a bunch of turnovers and was wearing Harry Potter's invisibility cloak. That's not going to make the Boston Bruins. So hopefully things change. But from right now, there's only so much we can really talk about for him positively.
Well, what I will say is that Montgomery did not criticize him after the game, and Montgomery
This was going to be the one final thing I want to bring up here.
Yeah, he did not criticize him. Montgomery is not really a coach that does that too much, and I think he knows with this player in particular,
right?
You're better off kind of saying these were the positives and not trying to really push any negative feedback, which he did not give. He said he liked Lysell's game. So Scott, if you wanted to add to that.
He was asked why Lysell couldn't get going tonight. And he said, I don't know. I don't think the ice was great. The puck was bouncing around. No one was really making plays. Like, that is the most... I'm not going to throw this kid under the bus. I'm just going to make up some BS that I think I've ever heard. Like,
that was a very transparent BS too.
Yeah. I mean, like, listen, we all know like the Garden Ice isn't great. But like, it wasn't 85 degrees out today. It was like 60 out in Boston. Like the ice was fine. That's
and also everyone was playing on the same ice.
Yeah.
But it did come across like that. I agree. But he was never going to call him out.
No, nor should he. I mean, there's no benefit to talking down on the player when he's just getting going in camp. Now here on the skate pod, all we can do is react to what we've seen.
All bets are off.
But as for his coach, if you want to get the best out of the player in camp, you don't want him hearing that wouldn't have been the thing to do.
And that's not what Montgomery really does. Like Cassidy has done that a little bit in the past, but Monty is not that kind of coach. I will say one other thing.
He only does it with David Pastrnak before Game 7.
And it worked. But one other thing that I think is a positive is actually the level of competition between the guys that were competing that are coming from Providence. And Coach mentioned this, I think, on day 1 or 2 of camp. Like, there wasn't a single guy out there in camp, and there's a lot of guys out there. There's almost 60 guys, right?
Yeah.
So He said there wasn't a single person that looked out of place. Like the competition level that they have internally and what they have depth-wise internally is actually really good. And I think the Providence Bruins, no matter who ends up on them, are going to have a great season because a lot of these guys are right there knocking on the doorstep and showing you they can handle NHL situations. And so that is definitely a positive, is that they all push each other and the depth is there and the options are there.
No, Providence is going to have a very good team. Very good team. And yeah, the last thing I would say is Lysell has the opportunity in front of him. He has all the tools. He just has to I guess bear down, for lack of, not to oversimplify it, but as it stands right now, he hasn't done enough, and not even close. So he's got some work to do if he wants to crack the opening night roster in Boston. But let's jump over to well, first of all, were there any other prospects from the game / over the last few days before we talk about the goaltending?
Not in terms of not really as far as guys who I think are going to make a serious push. I will say Jackson Nelson is someone I thought had a really good game Sunday, and I think has been way off people's radar. They signed him out of University of Minnesota last year as an undrafted free agent. He got some time with Providence at the end of the season, and his line was one of the two that Montgomery highlighted after the game, and for good reason. His line with Kuntar and Patrick Brown, and again, not someone I expect to make a roster push to start the year or even later in the year. But, acquitted himself well and adds some organizational center depth, and maybe you see him somewhere down the road.
Yeah, the two guys that I highlighted and said to keep an eye out for before the game were Riley Tufte and Riley Duran. And that was based on Riley Tufte having a really strong performance in the black and gold game and scoring there and going to the front of the net and being really hard to stop. And he's also 6'6". He's 230. He's a big guy and he's imposing. So I thought he was someone to watch. And I thought that of that line of with Merkulov and Lettieri, that Tufte did show himself pretty well. Also thought Lettieri had some flashes as well. But for the prospect wise, Tufte is a guy that I'm still interested in seeing if he can consistently play that physical and imposing style.
Is he a prospect? I don't really think he's a prospect.
I guess technically he's not really a prospect because he's played NHL games and he's just new to the Bruins. He's 26
he's
years
also
old,
26.
So. He's 26 and he doesn't look like a kid. I'll put it that way. And then Riley Duran, who just finished playing at Providence College, had 2 really good days at training camp, but was a little bit more quiet in the black and gold game and had a few flashes during preseason game 1, playing alongside Beecher in Kastelik. But something that Riley Duran does well when he's playing at his best is he can finish pucks, and he's kind of like a gnat. He's a good forechecker. He does battle for pucks. He's 6'1", which isn't small, but he's on the lighter side. I like his game. He had consistency issues in Providence, which I think I mentioned before, but he was playing with a lot of energy for Thursday and Friday in the practices. And so I just want to see if he can translate that into some offense during the games.
What do you guys think about Frederick Brunet, defensive prospect?
Brunet, I like him. Brunet. He definitely has offensive talent. He is going to have to improve his defensive game. I talked to him, was either last week or maybe it was during rookie camp. I don't know. It all blends together. But he said he definitely wants to improve defensively and play more physical. And I think you've seen a little bit of that. He's won some battle drills in practice. Seen him not throw any big hits, but he's bumped guys off the puck in both the black and gold scrimmage and against the Rangers. So I think he's on a good trajectory. I don't expect to see him in Boston this year because I just think he's, you know, his that side of his game still requires probably at least a full season in Providence. But there's some talent there. Listen, 6'3", 196 with offensive skill in his game. Like the rest you can teach and you hope it gets there, but like that's a really good starting spot.
Yeah, and he's still only 21. So
Yeah.
Scott, does he have a strong French Canadian accent?
Actually not really.
He's from Quebec.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I'm trying to think now because I've talked to him a few times. It does not stand out the way it does for other people from Quebec, especially from like Quebec City area, like the real French part of Quebec. Yeah, I haven't noticed it as much with him actually.
So what about this player who might be spending time in Boston this year? How do you guys feel about Tyler Johnson so far on his PTO? I mean, I'll say from the practices that I saw, I mean, he definitely, you watch him and you're like, oh yeah, yep, he's a legit NHLer even at his current age. Still has some really good speed, some wheels. I mean, there was one drill in particular, he kind of just blew right by Brandon Carlo. Now, I think it was a drill where it was tough on the defense because they were kind of playing multiple 3-on-2s in the same drill. But the Bruins depth chart right now, because talking about Lysell and Merkulov, obviously there's like specific roles or spots in the lineup for them, but as far as the Bruins forward depth chart, like I think they're probably like maybe like 15th or 16th if you talk about some of the fourth line players that be in front of them. I mean, you have Zacha, Lindholm, Pasternak, Marchand, Coyle, Poitras, Geeky, Frederick, Brazeau, Beecher, Kastelik, Max Jones, and then from there you can list off some call ups, right? I mean, there's Tyler Johnson is in the mix too. Tufty, Bridget mentioned, Kuntark, you got to call up Vinny Lettieri. Like, there's a lot of guys on the depth chart right now. Where do you think Tyler Johnson will fit in at camp's end? Obviously, it depends on how he performs in the games, but based off what you guys have seen, what do you expect out of him?
I could see him as extra forward. I could see him in that role, and I was impressed with him the first 2 days of camp. But he's somebody that's been playing with Charlie Coyle and Fabian Lysell when they've been out there for practice, and he's noticeably smaller, but also noticeably got that NHL skill set, and he's been in the league before, so he could be a good option for an extra forward.
Yeah, I thought he was good in practice. He scored in the black and gold game. He got to the front, and I think it was it a Wotherspoon shot that went in off him, like as he was kind of getting knocked down. Other than that, I thought he was kind of quiet in the black and gold game. I didn't think it was a great game for that line in general, him, Coyle, and Lysell. I will say, and again, that's the most recent thing we can reference because Johnson did not play in the preseason game against the Rangers. I will say, like, that line, Lysell was the one in the scrimmage who was like most taking the initiative and trying to make things happen. Didn't always work out, as Bridget referenced earlier. Like, he skated into a double team at one point. He had a good rush and then took it behind the net, held on too long, and turned it over in traffic. So I thought Johnson was a little quieter in that game. I'm guessing he plays Tuesday in the next preseason game. I feel like he's someone you want to keep taking a look at. But yeah, I could see him as an extra forward. I don't know that he has a regular spot in the lineup just yet. I think he still has to force his way into that. But he can be a little bit of the Swiss Army knife, like Danton Heinen was. I think he's maybe not as reliable defensively. I know his defensive metrics have been way down for a while now. Look, he was on a rebuilding Blackhawks team, so that hurts. But he can also play center, which Heinen couldn't do. So, a veteran who's won 2 cups, who can play all 3 forward positions. and generally just make smart plays and do the right thing, like I could absolutely see that at being the 13th forward who fills in, wherever they need it as the season goes on.
Okay. And how about Merkulov and Lysell starting the season in Providence? I mean, the combination of what we've seen so far, plus what you probably expect to see going forward, is that where you guys' minds are at right now?
So this is what I wanted to get to. I wanted to make some predictions. So this can be the start of our predictions. I guess the Johnson thing was also kind of a little bit of a prediction. Like he could make the team as the extra forward. But yeah, I want to hear your prediction on this first, Scott.
What, on Lysell and Merkulov?
Yes.
Yeah, I would have them both off the opening night roster right now, starting the season in Providence. As we've said, there's still time to change it. There's still 6 preseason games and 2+ weeks before opening night. But if I had to pick the team right now, just off track record and these first 4 days of camp, yeah, they would both be off.
I agree. I think that right now there are other options for the Bruins, especially in their bottom 6. If you decide neither of them are making it, Poitras playing right wing on the second line, then you do have plenty of guys that I think you could plug into your bottom 6 as of right now. Like I do think maybe Tufty could be a guy there that you plug into your bottom 6. And then, I just don't see it right now for those two, at least to start. But my other prediction is, and it goes with that, is that Poitras will be on the team. There was less of a question about him because he played last year, but obviously he still had to re-earn his spot and still early. But he just looks ready again. Like he looks completely comfortable. I would say he looks healthy. And he battles harder than those two so far. So my prediction for him is he makes the team, and he could be playing high in the lineup. Like he could end up in the top 6.
I mean, I think he might, certainly to start. I mean, I think right now the Bruins are going to have to, unless somebody just truly emerges, the Bruins are going to have to address that top 6 winger at the deadline or at some point throughout the season, probably via trade. Because it could be Poitras. I think it's probably premature to predict that he would produce at that level. But I definitely think to start the year, I mean, he's definitely one of the main candidates. Like we've said, I think it's him or Frederick, maybe Geeky, maybe Brazeau. But the combination, like I said, of how, like I said, Merkulov, in my opinion, has not really, I don't think he's played poorly in camp. I think he's going to have a tough time translating his game as an AHL scorer to the National Hockey League when he's not the guy playing in a role lesser in the lineup. And I think the speed and size of the NHL is going to give him difficulty. I don't think it's not from a lack of try from him, in my opinion. But in Lysell, but for both of them, they have to play at a level where the Bruins are going to have to sit there and say, which legit NHL forward are they taking the spot of? Because I just don't see I don't see Lysell going to 2 right wing. So I guess that's my prediction on Poitras. I think he's going to be top 6 to start, and I don't see Merkulov or Lysell based off what I've seen and just the numbers game in front of them. There's a logjam of forwards in front of them, NHL forwards. Like they'd have to really, really play well to leapfrog people, and I just don't really see it. Not yet.
Yeah. And to take it a little bit further on Poitras, I also this is my prediction is he doesn't end up in Providence at any point this season. Like I just think he's going to have a good season. I just sense that he's in such a good headspace to know what he needs to do and do the right things that I think he's getting, as long as he stays healthy, he's getting a full season with the Bruins.
I mean, I have him penciled in at like 35 to 40 points this year. Yeah. In my mind, he was never going to Providence. I mean, maybe as like a conditioning stint, or maybe if he just, really just was not who he was last year because he was set back so far. But I always thought that was next to impossible.
Yeah.
I,
Just to reiterate like everything you guys have said, but yeah, he's looked really good so far. I know it's like everyone brought up, even Don Sweeney himself brought up the possibility of Providence, like said it's an option, it's on the table. Sweeney and Montgomery both said like, yeah, we know, we're going to have to give Poitras, a long runway to build up after the shoulder surgery and rehab and all that. And it's like, actually, you didn't have to give him a long runway. Like, he's been one of the best players through, again, he didn't play Sunday, but through the first 3 days, the 2 practices and the black and gold scrimmage. I mean, he was one of the 3 or 4 best players on the ice in the black and gold scrimmage. And that was with just about the full NHL team playing. Like, Elias Lindholm didn't play because he's being held out. We should, I guess, in case people haven't heard, update there is Lindholm's expected back on the ice Monday. They think he'll be able to rejoin with the full group Tuesday. So, Morgan Geekie left that game a little banged up. It sounds like he'll be fine. So they've avoided serious injuries so far. But yeah, I mean, Poitras was great Saturday. So he absolutely looks like he belongs. I don't see him getting sent down, at least not to start the year. If you get into the season and he's having trouble holding up, he goes cold, there's stuff you want to work on, like whatever it might be. I guess it's possible he goes to Providence at some point for a week or 2. But yeah, I mean, he looks like an NHLer.
Yeah. He's somebody too that he just got the right attitude that he takes into everything. Like, I feel like every time we're in the locker room and you see him, he's just smiling. On a training camp on the ice, he's just smiling. Like, he's very comfortable. And he's a pretty humble kid and just takes a good attitude into it. And I think that's why he's successful. And I found myself, I've had a few just like random side conversations with him so far this preseason about like his living situation. He still lives with Johnny Beecher. But I guess their lease is coming up in November, and he says that the North End is so expensive he doesn't know if he wants to move back there. So he's got like that sticker shock of living in the North End, and talked to him about his sister playing up at Merrimack, and he was shocked how in the middle of nowhere Merrimack is. Sorry, Brian, no offense to you. Brian went to Merrimack, but yeah, no, he's just willing to talk about whatever, and yeah, he's just a nice kid.
I mean, how dare you? Is there still Fuddruckers up there? That was always my that was where I had to go when I went to Merrimack. That's what you look forward to that trip for.
I don't know what Bridget's talking about. Everybody from, call it Nashua to Boston, those are Merrimack colleges. I got the rest of the country, but
well,
that little radius.
Canada. So the funniest thing to me was when I was talking to him about like, oh, have you gone to visit your sister? He said, yeah, and she's got this card that she can use to get all her food. And he was like shocked about this because he's never been to college, so he doesn't know about like the meal card, and you just go to the dining hall and you swipe it, and he was like, this is crazy.
But by the way, yeah. I've talked to at the black and gold game. After that game, I was talking to Beecher and talked to him a little bit about Poitras, and I was like, so he said you guys are still living together, and Beecher's like, yeah, I'm still playing babysitter.
Yeah, I feel like when Poitras is 40, he's still gonna look like he's 20. He just has that face.
Yeah, and I mean, he's just lacks the life experience because he's only 20. So he's learning as he goes. Maybe next time I talk to him, I'll try to see if he figured out how to cook anything. But
before we get out of here, guys, I quickly want to jump back to Scott's opening shift. We never really got around to the goaltending. So obviously against the Rangers, a couple of soft goals. It's preseason, whatever, but it is relevant in the sense where, of course, the Jeremy Swayman stuff is still unsolved or unresolved. And Yeah, so in a world without Jeremy Swayman, what's the Bruins' organizational goaltending depth looking like? We think it's pretty good with DiPietro and Bussy, and obviously they brought in Korpisalo and others, and the Bruins have a track record of good goaltending. But yeah, what'd you guys make of the goaltending tonight and potentially life without Jeremy Swayman?
Yeah, like as I said off the top, it's not the best first impression when you're looking at like, all right, so who do they have without Swayman around? And it's like, Bussy gave up a soft one, and DPH gave up a soft one. And again, still have to see Korpisalo in preseason action. I imagine he probably plays Tuesday, but I guess we'll see. And yeah, look, Bussy and DPH are better than that. Like, they're not going to give up soft goals every game. But again, as we've said, it's a sprint to the start of the regular season, so every game matters. And not the best start for like two guys who, even if and when Swayman does return prior to opening night, like in theory, those guys could be battling Korpisalo for the backup job. Bussy especially, a lot of people think like he's a guy who's ready to make a push. Even Sweeney has talked about that. Like, they're going to give him an opportunity to show that. So, okay, here was the first real opportunity in a game against another team, and it didn't go well.
And they're both 25 years old. They're both the goalies that were in Providence last season. And yeah, their performances weren't enough to really like jump them off the page. I know there was one preseason game last year where Brennan Bussy made this amazing save that everybody remembers. Jim Montgomery even brought up the save during training camp already.
Well, he was awesome that whole game.
Yeah, that whole game he was.
Yeah, he played the whole game and stopped like 34 of 35 or something. Like,
yeah, and we should say that both of these guys split time almost exactly down the middle today. I think Bussy played the first 30 minutes just about, and then DiPietro played the rest of the game. So they split time really, really evenly. And I think the story really more is, what do you do if one of those guys is your backup because Jeremy Swayman is not in your lineup? And we haven't seen Korpisalo yet in a preseason game. So maybe he gives people a little bit more confidence if he does well. But I think if he lets in a soft goal or two, say he plays Tuesday in preseason game 2, I feel like people are going to be hitting the panic button, and we're going to keep talking about it. And the pressure is going to keep going on and on for Don Sweeney to get Jeremy Swayman back signed and ready to go for the season. But ever since that last rumor day, it's been quiet, right? Like there's not been anything leaked out about them getting closer. The rumors have settled down after Sweeney called out some people for their sources, what their sources were saying, and stuff turning out to not be true. So unfortunately, there's no news on the Swayman front.
Would you guys still be surprised if it wasn't resolved before regular season?
At this point, no.
I would still be mildly surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised at this point. I feel like Don Sweeney's philosophy is he's willing to take it as long as he can take it. I don't think that's ideal. I don't think either side thinks that's ideal.
Yeah. Okay, but if you have subpar goaltending and start losing games, like,
yeah,
again, we talked, like, this team cannot be in a position at any point this season where they're in danger of missing the playoffs. And if you start slow, you put yourself in an awkward position. So, like, there's motivation on both sides to get something done. There has to be. Like, the Bruins need him, and Jeremy Swayman needs to play. Like, what 25-year-old like isn't gonna play? Like this is your team now. It's like you're the franchise goalie, and you're gonna kind of start your reign just sitting out, watching your team like struggled through the first month of the season. Like I still can't imagine it on either side. It would be so silly to me if like they're both so stubborn that they can't get this done.
I agree. I would like to think that the Bruins' defensive depth and personnel would be good enough in front of any goaltenders that they have, where they could still be a successful team, playoff team, at least until Swayman gets back. But yeah, not really a risk you'd want to take. So hopefully it gets solved.
Yeah, it still looms. Still looms over every storyline about the Bruins. It's like you look away today. You look away really, and you're trying to look at some of the forwards, but then it always comes back to goaltending.
All right, Bridget Scott. Well, that probably wraps it up for this episode. Hopefully, next time we speak, it'll be after the Tuesday game. Hopefully, Lysell scores 6 goals, and I can sit here and be like, "Yep, second line right wing, here we come." And maybe Merkulov assists on all those goals, and here we go. But
though there's gonna be personnel changes because there's plenty of guys that need to get rotated in, and I don't think there's gonna be a lot of regulars once again, but there are other guys in training camp that are younger or guys from Providence that are probably gonna get some time rotated. And I assume the defensemen will be different. I don't know if you guys feel that way too, but Lorai and Peak were the top pair today. I thought they did pretty good, but I feel like they'll give way to some other pairs next game and whatnot.
They'll probably sprinkle in NHL regulars here and there, but I think they'll probably, so they have 7 preseason games. So let's call the last one maybe like most of the roster, the real roster. So I would expect Lysell and Merkulove to at least get, probably 5 games. They're probably going to give them as many opportunities as they can get, to Scott's point earlier. So whatever roster they plug in around them, I would imagine that they'll be in there, and maybe a couple other players that they're looking to give opportunities to as well. But
I got one final thought from today's preseason game. And it's about Parker Wotherspoon. So we didn't get a chance to talk about him. And I feel like it's important to bring up that he's okay. And the injury that it looked like he suffered in the first period was he just had the wind knocked out of him. And then he came back and he fought, very rightly so, because Brennan Othmann seemed like he was specifically targeting Wotherspoon for whatever reason. He hit him hard twice. One was kind of a late hit. One was kind of a high hit.
It wasn't kind of late.
It was late.
He hit him like 3 years after he got rid of the puck.
Yeah, it was a late hit. They were both a little bit dirty. The
second one was clean. That was a good hard hit. The first one.
The second one looked like he jumped into it a little bit, but either way, they looked like specifically targeting Wotherspoon. I don't even think they have any history with each other. I don't know if that's just how it happened coincidentally that there was 2 really hard hits from him, but Wotherspoon obviously took notice. Buzzer sounds on the end of the second period, and Wotherspoon fights him and takes his helmet off his head and spikes it on the ground. He is all fired up. And he apologized for that. He said that was, that's what got the extra penalty, and he doesn't want to be doing that. So, but he's healthy, he's okay, and he's probably your 7th defenseman on the team this year. And I also want to give him a shout out because he asked me how I was doing because he saw me in my crutches and my brace, and we talked for a few minutes about my knee. So I give him props for being a nice guy and being like, "You okay? Because you look like you're not okay."
Parker Wotherspoon, confirmed good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Montgomery was asked after the game, like, did you like seeing Wotherspoon stand up for himself, get revenge or whatever?
That was me.
Like, yeah, and he was like, yes, but I didn't like him throwing the helmet away because that was the extra penalty. Also on the penalty front, I'll quickly bring up Mark Kastelik, who I thought brought a lot of physicality and helped kind of set the tone, but also took 2 offensive zone penalties. He said after the game that he was probably a little too fired up for his, first game of the season, but also his first game as a Bruin, even though it is preseason. So he kind of, acknowledged that and said,
Well,
yeah,
he tried to fight. They
yeah,
just
he was
didn't
in a
let him.
bunch of scrums. Yeah, he was mixing it up, which you like all that. You just don't like the penalties. I will say, I looked it up. Okay, does Catholic have a history of lots of minor penalties? No, he doesn't. The last 2 years in Ottawa, he has 25 in the 2 years combined, 25 minor penalties in like 130 games. So not a lot. Has not made a habit of it. He's been like 9th or 10th on the Senators in minor penalties taken. So I will, if it's me, like I buy that excuse. Like I think he was just a little too fired up, tried to do a little too much in terms of setting the tone, and I would not expect that to be a regular thing with him.
He was entertaining.
Yeah.
I like him.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. Stick him on the fourth line, and it'll be a fun opening night against Florida. Zadorov will be in the mix. It'll be good. Frederick, all of them. Be a good, passionate opening night to the season. All right, Bridget, Scott, I think we can probably wrap it up here. So thank you all very much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey, guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.